we will have an invocation offered by Commissioner Lockhart, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, I ask for your help and blessing to continue our commitment to the citizens of Sandusky. In this room, in this city, let our faith bloom in the toughest of places, among all creeds and races. Let our service to the citizens of Sandusky shine to all those who observe us. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Gresser, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Twine? Here. Mr. Lockhart?
Here.
Ms. Lloyd? Here. Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Here.
Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Poole is absent. He was caught in travel, plane delay. So would someone care to make a motion to excuse him?
So moved.
Second.
A motion second. Without objection, the motion will be approved. And hearing no objection, the motion is approved. We have our minutes of July 24, 2017. Commissioners, what is your preference?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Waddington.
move that we accept the minutes of the July 24th meeting and dispense with formal reading.
Second.
Then a motion and second. Discussion? Without objection, the motion will be approved. And hearing no objection, the motion is approved. We turn now to a couple of presentations and proclamations. We're going to start out with Commissioner Lloyd, who has a proclamation.
And this is a proclamation for Warm Choice Program, and I understand Mr. Campbell is in the audience from Columbia Gas, and he will be giving us a description of the program after the proclamation. Whereas the City of Sandusky strives to be a sustainable energy leader through energy-efficient programming such as the Home Energy Audit and Rebates Program and the Warm Choice Program provided by Columbia Gas of Ohio, and whereas by participating in the Sandusky Neighborhood Energy Efficiency Program, citizens of Sandusky have the opportunity to save money on utility bills, receive instant rebates on energy efficiency upgrades, including insulation and air sealing, conserve energy, and to help voluntarily reduce greenhouse gas emissions by reducing their annual natural gas usage. And whereas Sandusky residents who participate will not only make a positive environmental impact, but will also enjoy savings on future energy bills and, in many cases, have a more comfortable home. And whereas part of the city's continuing efforts to promote energy efficiency and environmental stewardship in our community, residents are encouraged to install qualified energy efficient improvements through participation in Columbia Gas of Ohio's programming, including the Warm Choice Program and Home Energy Audit Program. Now, therefore, I, Nikki Lloyd, Sandusky City Commissioner, do hereby endorse Columbia Gas of Ohio's energy efficiency programs, including the Home Energy Audit Program and the Warm Choice Program, and encourage the citizens of Sandusky to participate by having a home energy audit conducted in their home. Dated this 14th day of August, 2017.
Thank you. And Mr. Campbell, would you like to give us a little bit more of a description? And let me just say that the city of Sandusky is not a shill for utilities, but this is actually this is a real substantial program that will generate substantial savings for anyone who takes advantage of it. And that's why we invited you here tonight to explain a little bit more about this. I know this is the second time this has come up in a meeting.
Yeah, this is the second time we've been here. We presented last, I think at the end of July last time. And we're very excited to be here. We thank the city of Sandusky and the residents for allowing us to come up into this area to present the program and to offer the program in general to the residents. It's a fantastic program that offers home energy audits to customers that are Columbia Gas, natural gas heated homes. And for $20, you can have a home energy audit, which tests things like air leakage with a blower door test, looks at thermal imaging throughout the walls, attic areas, performs combustion safety tests on natural gas heated appliances, hot water systems, to evaluate carbon monoxide levels. So we're not just looking at energy efficiency in general, it's looking at the safety and energy efficiency of the home. So for only $20, you can have the audit done. It takes approximately 3 to 4 hours. At the completion of the audit, the auditor will make recommendations for items such as attic insulation, wall insulation, air sealing to address those gaps, cracks, and holes, furnace replacements and boiler replacements. And specifically for the city of Sandusky, all those recommended air sealing and insulation measures can be completed by a participating contractor for only $300. So at the time of work, the only thing you would pay a participating contractor is $300 to have all those items completed. For a furnace or boiler replacement, if they're recommended through the program, that's a $1,000 instant rebate for a 96% Energy Star rated furnace or a 90% Energy Star rated boiler. So again, a fantastic program that brings a lot as far as rebates back onto for the energy efficiency measures, and gives customers a great opportunity to kind of take advantage of the great program that Columbia Gas has offered.
Well, I want to thank Columbia Gas for making this program available to our city. I know it's not widely available, and I'd already talked to one resident who went through the program and was just astounded by how inexpensive it was and how much money they would save and what little they really had to pay for it. So, again, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing further awareness to this.
Absolutely. And
And
one
we have
last
a
thing.
proclamation that you can take back home if you don't mind, or to your workplace. Just as a recognition of our appreciation for what it is that you're doing, all right? Okay, thank you.
I would say one last thing. We will be in the area on August 26th, likely in the neighborhood of the first 2 weeks. So you'll see us kind of moving around. We'll try and conduct as many audits as we possibly can at that time, as well as hand out program information as well. If you want to sign up, you can sign up online at ColumbiaGasOhio.com. It's the state, and you can schedule the day and time right then and there.
Okay, thank you. Chief? You mind? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to have the ability to introduce our new fire chief. Rick Wilcox will be starting on Monday, and he is with us here tonight. We just had a reception for him. We met a number of the folks working for the city, and I've already heard great things about him. I know he was a star during the interview process, and we thank you for coming to lead the Sandusky Fire Department, Chief.
Thank you very much. Again, as he said, I'm Rick Wilcox. I'm 46 years old. I'm a 26-year veteran of the East Cleveland Fire Department. I've served as the fire chief there for over 3.5 years. If you know anything about East Cleveland, you know that it is a very contentious place, and you know, some would describe it as a little cankerous. But however, it was a place that prepared me to take on this job. And if you can be the chief in East Cleveland, you can be the chief anywhere. We, as the Sandusky Fire Department, we wanted to be in the community and involved in the community to the extent where the community feels as though that they have their finger on the pulse of the fire department, and likewise. We want to have the engine houses relatively available for anyone who wants to come by and be a part of that. And then we also want to interact with the community as well, and that's some of our goals. We want to maintain the service that we've been providing for the city of Sandusky and the citizens, and then we want to raise the bar and provide a higher level of service as we go on. In terms of myself, I personally am involved with the community civically back in East Cleveland. I plan on doing so here in Sandusky. I'm currently the executive director of East Cleveland Police Athletic League. I've been in that program or that organization for over 20 years. We've serviced 10,000 young men and women, and what we've done with those young men and women have raised them at least to the point where they can go to college and receive their degrees, or at least to the point where they can get conflict resolution to just everyday living. And that can go for anything from teen pregnancies or all the way to just basically just having some type of mentor to talk to just to kind of solve their issues. And my firefighters were always available to the community in that capacity. They were always to the point where they would raise money for those type of causes, and to make sure that it was well funded so the kids could have something at least they can look forward to, especially for a city such as East Cleveland who didn't have sports programs or anything earmarked for that matter. So they made it very seamless. It didn't appear as though the city didn't have Parks and Recs. The fire department did provide that service for the city of East Cleveland, and what we want to do here in terms of our fire department is kind of much offer the same. Not that they need it in terms of Parks and Recs, but to make sure that we are a part of this community as well. So I thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here this evening, and hope to be here for many, many years. I'm very, I'm open. Anybody want to come by and just say hello? They just want to meet me? Then I'm happy to meet with you And thank you again for this opportunity, and I hope to make all of you proud.
Well, welcome aboard, Chief.
Said Monday. He did say that. Yeah, Dennis did.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to say thank you, Eric. What a great choice. I think we got to keep her.
10 years, you said, right, Mr. Washington?
Yep, I heard 10 years. I heard 10, right? Huh? I'm going to remember that.
Play this back.
He doesn't forget anything.
Now I want to turn to Aaron Cremeen, who is the internship coordinator at Sandusky City Schools. And Aaron runs the Global Internship Program, which is an award-winning program. Just the number of students who have gone through it has been amazing. You've really done, by all accounts, a very fine job, and we appreciate what you do for the city schools. This is, I think, the last in a series of different emissaries who've come over to the commission meetings from the Sandusky City Schools to explain more in depth some of the things that we're doing, and we're happy to end on such a strong note. Ms. Green?
Thank you very much. It's happy to be back. I recently was just at the Ohio Department of Ed Career Connections Conference in July, and it is exciting to see how well this program has taken off and it continues to grow. So I'm going to show you a PowerPoint that was a 30-minute presentation in about 5 minutes. So I hope I can do this. But basically, like he said, this program is part of the transformation plan by Dr. Sanders, a vision that he had. And in 2014, he wanted to develop some global internships for our students to be able to compete in a global society. And he hired me 2.5 years ago. We started off with only 40 students. We had 60 last year, and all seniors will participate in some shape or form this year. You can see the overview for the program. It's very organized. We have many, I pair up with the guidance counselors. I have an internship committee. We have this program with many, many businesses. I'm up to 226 businesses that I have visited and I partner with for this program. As a prerequisite, the 9th grade do take a web-based global perspectives course, which is also an elective entrepreneur course. As their senior year, they work with me first semester and they get training and seminars and field trips and learn everything about careers and the global impact that they may have. Second semester, they get to go out and actually do that. We've actually had some interns here at the city building. This does not interrupt the senior schedule. That's always a very common question. We do not interfere with the music or athletics. We make sure everybody is in line to graduate. With the businesses, I have a training agreement. I do coordinators visits and supervision. There's evaluations and internships, also do an evaluation of that business. At the end, the students do a 5-minute speech and a PowerPoint, and they get to share what they learned at that internship site. They also share the ideas that they see for that company. I try to make them very forward-thinking because I want them to realize that every career, be it in Sandusky or beyond, has a global impact. First semester, this is a picture from last year. These are just very quickly, I'm not going to read them all. That's State Representative Arndt. He works very closely with me. He comes in and he speaks to the students about workforce development, about the goals in the state of Ohio, and the impact that these seniors are about to make as they branch out into whatever area they're interested in. And I may say this is for all students, not just a select few. We have them involved in college, military, trades, or the direct workforce. Here's just an example of the training. They get me all day. We have several training sessions. I bring in speakers. We do a lot of interactive, and they learned a lot of on-hands type of activities. Here we visited JBT Food Tech here, which is a global company. They learned about technology, engineering, manufacturing, and the global impact that this company has right here in Sandusky. Second semester, they go right out and they do that internship. I have affiliation agreements with the businesses. The insurance writer is with the school. The kids transport themselves and they can go every day. So second semester is a lot different for our seniors. They may go to school for a few hours in the morning and they go out to that internship. We've been at many businesses. Kids come back, oh wow, the real world's a lot different. Or boy, that's nothing like television. So I try not to laugh because that's an honest opinion of our millennials. They think think everything is what it is on YouTube. But they are learning a lot of great networking. But the biggest part, they learn what they can do in their careers from a global standpoint. These are just some of the pictures of the students. Quite a few in this slide are actually direct hired at those sites and doing very well. Here's the presentation night. We've welcomed, I know some of you have come to those evenings, and the students do have to speak, which is a phenomenal thing for them to do, to stand up in front of a group and be able to share. And it is exciting to hear their thoughts. I always just tell them to speak from their heart and use their PowerPoints and just tell everyone what they learned. My favorite line that night was, seize the day, eye-opening, culture shock, not like TV. This is exactly what I want to do. I'm excited. And that particular young man is going to John Carroll to be an anesthesiologist. Another one that I really liked, it was an amazing, I can't even put into words. It gave me a vision of my future. I have really changed as a person. And that young man is getting ready to go into his second year of college in engineering. Here was my Fab 40, as I called them, my 40 brave souls that had no clue what they were getting into, and they did very well their first year of the global internship. These are just a quick demographic of those students in the areas of study and careers that they did. This is my group from last year. As you can see, it grew. And that is the cross-section. It gets a lot smaller, but as it gets larger, the careers get a lot more vast. And I'm excited to all the businesses that are willing to work with us, because it is a partnership between students, businesses, and the community. And I know I have some people in this room that have been willing to work with me, and I can't thank you enough. Because one of the common things that these students say to me, I can't believe anybody really cares what I want to do. I said, well, you are our future, and you're going to do a lot of great things, and they're excited to meet you. These are just some of the businesses that I've been able to partner with and work with and have internships with. And like I said, the students basically go out there. I get them started, but they interview and they go there on a day-to-day basis. And some come back, gosh, it's quiet there. Or, wow, you have to talk to people. And it's just a different concept. But they also get really excited about all the businesses that have a global impact right here in this area of Erie County. They are really shocked and amazed by that. And it is exciting, because name one trade that you don't need globally. I try to get them to understand not everybody that's going to go to college, but those trades are just as important, and the military is just as important. And I know I want to thank Chief Horzak. We had, I think we had 5 or 6 students that did internships with the Sandusky PD. We actually had a young lady that did the FBI training agent camp in June. I think it's the first time we've had anybody in this area, and she had a great time, and it was a great experience. I'm open to any ideas. I enjoy working with many companies. Here's some quotes from some of my businesses. Excited to test drive young people. That was Ted Kasser from Janata and Herner. Great opportunity to meet young people so we don't have to hire out of state. That was David Pepper over at Thor Sport Racing, and we had a young lady there that was doing welding. So we're preparing students to succeed in a global society. When this program started, like I said, I started off with a small group. It continues to grow. Here we had a nice article in the Sandusky Register. Our next steps, we value and develop the global experience and for the mindset for the students. Think big, not just in this area, but what can they possibly go out and do and come back to this area and contribute. Require the programs as part of the college and career readiness path. Faculty and staff now have to really put and integrate that global perspective in the curriculum. Having local businesses and industry partner with us with the aspects of that work and continue to expand the internship regionally, nationally, and internationally. I am talking with a company that is in Frankfurt, Germany. If I have anything to say with it, I hope to take a group of students by 2019 over to Germany. So this was our cross-section from our recent graduate class. We had 70% college path. We had 19% trades, which is the highest we've ever had, and 10% military. Several of my students that were in the global internship program received paid internships, and I had as many as 20 that remained on to continue working with that company. So overall, this global internship experience provides an exposure to a career, real world, and that global awareness, and we feel Sandusky High is on the right track to have our students be ready to thrive in a global society. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Green. An excellent presentation. Commissioners, questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Twine.
I just want to thank Aaron for coming out and doing the presentation, and Sandusky High for getting involved. I wish this was in school when I was in school, but it's a great opportunity for students to get out in the real work world and see what a real workplace looks like and experience that. So we appreciate what you've done here tonight and what the Sandusky High School is doing for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you very much.
Now, one of the nice things about being the president of the commission is if I get off track, which I am in terms of the schedule, I have usually six, just tonight, 5 colleagues to set me straight, along with Mrs. Kresser. So I realize I'm jumping around a little bit in terms of the order. We're going to do the second presentation next, but first, we have a proclamation that Commissioner Twine is going to present.
Yes, I have a proclamation. Basically, it's identifying the crackdown dates for driving sober or get pulled over. And we just want everybody to be mindful. Don't drive while you're under the influence. Bad things happen. The proclamation. Whereas from August 16th through Labor Day, law enforcement nationwide will be joining the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the High Visibility Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over Crackdown campaign. And whereas the crackdown will include high visibility enforcement throughout Sandusky and will run from August 16th through September 4th, 2017. And whereas officers in the Sandusky Police Department will be aggressively looking for drunk drivers during the crackdown and will arrest anyone caught driving drunk. And whereas although it is illegal in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico to drive drunk or having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 or higher, far too many people across the nation get behind the wheel after consuming too much alcohol. And whereas every year, more than 1/3 or 38% of all motor vehicle traffic deaths involve drivers who were drunk, and holidays such as Labor Day are particularly dangerous. And whereas drunk driving takes a particularly heavy toll among young drivers, and whereas research has shown that high visibility enforcement, like the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign, reduces drunk driving fatalities by as much as 20%, and by joining this nationwide effort, Sandusky's roadways will be made safer for everyone throughout the Labor Day period. And whereas the Sandusky Police Department wants to remind everyone that getting behind the wheel drunk is a terrible idea, as it impairs your ability to operate a vehicle safely, impairs your judgment and good sense about whether you can or should drive, and whereas being arrested for driving drunk brings a wide range of negative consequences into one's life, such as jail time, loss of driver licenses, and steep financial consequences, such as higher insurance rates, attorney fees, court costs, lost time at work, and the potential loss of one's job, along with tremendous personal embarrassment. And whereas driving drunk is simply not worth the risk, now therefore I, Naomi Twine, duly elected member of the Sandusky City Commission, do hereby proclaim and announce August 16, 2017 through September 4, 2017 as Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2017 Crackdown Weeks in the city of Sandusky, and urge all citizens to drive sober or get pulled over while traveling on our roadways, dated this 14th day of August 2017.
Thank you, Commissioner Twine. Next, we go to the second presentation, and Twine is going to introduce the presenter. When he first suggested that we put this on the agenda, backflow prevention devices, I thought, well, this is really boring. Why are we going to talk about this? But then I read the details, and I'm really glad that you're bringing this to our attention, the community's attention, because this is really important. It could save a lot of money and a lot of inconvenience. So thank you for the initiative, Ms.
Yeah,
Klein.
well, with everything, all the stuff that I submitted being on the consent agenda, we had to get our airtime somehow, so. What I actually want to do is I want to start off by introducing the people out in the field. I want to introduce the guys that actually do the work. They don't get a lot of recognition. They don't get a lot of credit for the work that they do. So I asked 3 of them to be here today, and these guys do an amazing job for the city in keeping the infrastructure that we have out there working, and to make sure that we're delivering high-quality water. So the first person who's been involved in this process is Orrin McMonigal. He's the superintendent. You can stand up real quick. He's the superintendent of the water treatment plant, Big Island Water Works. The second one would be Adam King, who is the superintendent or the chief foreman of water distribution. And he's the one that is calling the crews in when you get water main breaks in the middle of winter. So he's responsible for all the field work that's being done. But the last person that I want to introduce is the one that you're going to be hearing from tonight, and that's Mike Delk. Mike is the backflow and integrity specialist. He filled the position about a year and a half ago. The position was eliminated in the early 2000s during budget cuts. It just wasn't refilled at that time. So we've been working pretty hard over the last year and a half, 2 years to get this backflow and integrity program back up and running. We get inspections done at the water plant once a year, and we've been getting findings and orders that we need to bring our program into compliance. So the reason that the timing worked out today is that in 2 weeks, we are going to be bringing legislation to the commission, and we wanted to make sure that we gave everybody enough time. We gave everybody watching, all the businesses and the customers that have backflow, enough time to be able to see and understand and know what's going on. And this program, as you'll see, is not going to be implemented for several months. But right now, I think I'd like to turn it over to Mike. You can stand back up and come on over. I'm going to sit down, but I have a handout that I'll distribute towards the end.
Mr. Dowd, thank you and welcome. Let me just ask, are you also an engineer?
No, I'm not.
Oh, good. Thank you. We try to keep them away from the microphones.
Okay, thank you very much. As you know, my name is Mike Delk. Good evening, everybody. What I'd like to discuss today is about our backflow program, and what we're trying to do is to protect our water system and protect our consumers' water system. What I'm going to do also is give you an overview of how this is supposed to take place. And what we're going to do tonight is talk something about backflow. A lot of us don't understand how backflow works, but hopefully I can somewhat get you to understand how backflow takes place and why it's important for us to have this program. Right here is what we have is how normal flow works in our water system, going from our water plant through our distribution system, through your water meters. You have a backflow after that, and then it goes to these systems throughout your house or your industrial and commercial buildings. What is backflow? Backflow, as you can see, is the reversal of water through private water lines and fixtures, and possibly it could back up into our public water system. And what I'd like to do now is show you a little video with the help of my IT man, and we'll get this video. Thank you very much.
One question frequently asked by
Yes.
Charleston Water Systems customers is, what is backflow and why do I need to install a backflow preventer? Backflow is the reversal of normal water flow caused by a sudden change in water pressure. Backflow could contaminate.
Bear with us, please. A little technical difficulty.
A cross-connection exists. A cross-connection is a link between a potable water system and a non-potable water system. In this case, we're referring to the connection between Charleston Water's public water lines and our customers' private plumbing systems. Over the past few decades, there have been many documented examples nationwide where contamination of water through backflow has caused illnesses, burns, and even deaths. One simple example of a potential backflow hazard is your home's irrigation system. If the homeowner uses pesticides and fertilizers, and water pools around one of the nozzles, during a loss of system pressure, pesticides and fertilizer could be sucked back down those lines. Then, when system pressure is regained, those pesticides and fertilizer could be introduced into other people's drinking water. But with the installation of a backflow preventer, potentially hazardous substances are prevented from entering the public water system. This is why Charleston Water System requires customers who have an irrigation system to install a backflow preventer and have it tested annually to make sure it's working. Industrial facilities and businesses whose operation presents a backflow hazard, such as car washes, dry cleaners, restaurants, and salons, are also required to install a backflow preventer. There are different types of devices designed for various degrees of hazard. Charleston Water System's cross-connection control department works with customers to determine whether a backflow hazard exists, and if so, what type of backflow preventer is required. For more information and before installing a backflow preventer, be sure to review the installation requirements listed on our website or contact our cross-connection control department.
Hi, my name's Allison, and I'm here to demonstrate backflow and cross-connection using...
Very much, Stuart. I hope that video gave you a little bit of an aspect of how backflow works and why prevention, once again, is very important. You know, easily can be done, like you said, with irrigation being one thing, and there's a lot more other possibilities of how backflow can interrupt our system into our drinking water, which, like you said, could potentially cause death. What causes backflow? Backflow is caused by two hydraulic principles, one being back pressure, the other one being back siphonage. Back siphonage occurs when there's an extreme demand for water, such as a water main break, hydrant flushing, even fighting a fire. You know, turning the hydrants on too fast, you know, closing them too fast, it caused that shock wave in our system, and that pressure alone can cause something, you know, 30 feet down the line. You know, we just never know what's going to happen. So, you know, all that aspect of backflow pretty much helps us provide a way of slowing that down. Back pressure is caused when you have an extreme pressure inside the consumer's building, you know, through a mechanical pump where you have to pump water through several floors of like a high rise or something, and it's producing 80 to 100 pounds of pressure. As far as like what the city puts out is usually somewhere between 50 to 60 pounds of pressure. So when you have that back pressure coming, you know, towards our system, if you don't have anything to protect it, whatever's drawing, you know, from inside that building is going to draw right back out into the public water system. Why is prevention important? Prevention is important because it's like another emergency system for us. And the more protection we have in our public water system and the consumer's water system, the better off it is as protecting us as a whole. I mean, as we understand, mechanical devices, anything can fail, but you know, the more protection we have, the better for all of us, you know, as far as the drinking water is concerned. Here's our few examples of cross connections. Usually this is what you have for residential, you know, your lawn irrigations, you know, your hose bibs, swimming pools. Commercials, you're usually looking at, you know, the sprinkler systems, the boilers, you know, high pressure boilers, and they also do have irrigation systems as well. Protecting these systems will help, you know, in the long run benefit us, you know, as a public, as far as, you know, how we go about this every day, and hopefully, you know, the consumers understand why we're doing this. Here's an example of what a backflow, not an extreme example of what a backflow device looks like, but this is kind of how it works. You know, it comes from the water main. You have your shutoff valve, you have your water meter, and then usually somewhere, whether it be in a vault or inside of a building, you have your backflow device. And then from the backflow device, you'll go out and it'll branch off into the fixtures of, you know, your premise. And this pretty much is how you should have things set up this way. because you don't want the backflow set up, you know, after your fixtures, because then you're not protecting your whole system. You're just protecting anything after that system, after that backflow device. Required by law. You know, as you can tell, you know, dealing with the EPA, this is something that is required. You know, like Aaron said, you know, due to budget cuts and everything else, we haven't always had this system around, but it's always been a law. And, you know, what we're trying to do is bring it back up to speed and keep things going towards the future. Cross connections and backflow surveys. Pretty much what we like to do is, you know, we like to come out and, you know, do surveys on businesses and, you know, see what type of backflows they have already, you know, see what type of hazards they might cause, and also go out and see the individuals or the property owners that might not have a backflow that would need a backflow, because they might not understand, you know, what they have in their system, because, you know, things change hands and different owners, and they're like, well, what is backflow? And that's why I'm here to kind of explain to them how it works. The backflow prevention program, what we do here is we, you know, kind of like send out letters to the property owners, and once they get them, receive them, you know, it's like an annual test. You test it every 12 months is what you do. You'll send a report to me. What I'll do is then I'll enter in my system, and then from there, you know, we can see who's being compliant, who's not, and from there we say, hey, you know, your backflow is, you know, up for testing. Do you have somebody certified to test these? And, you know, we have a response, you know, within a short period of time. Usually, you know, we never have a problem with this, but once again, it's another way of for us to maintain our system. Public outreach plan is kind of part of what I was saying. Is we're gonna have a little draft made up of how we're gonna proceed to how we're gonna do our system. You know, first what we're gonna do is we're gonna print out the letters itself. You know, then from there we mail them out. You know, homeowners have usually about a month to a month and a half. You know, the send reports back in. Then after that time, you know, after that we make phone calls and, you know, kind of remind them of what's going on. Aaron is going to pass out this draft, you know, to kind of let you know how we plan on doing things. You're good? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I thought he was going to pass them out, but that'll be it for another time. And for anybody that would have questions, feel free to call me or email me. I'm available all the time. I mean, I've had some plumbers even call me after work. You know, if I'm available, I still answer my phone. So, you know, thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you, and everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Delk, and thank you for your efforts to keep our water supply safe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we turn now to public comment on any of our audience participation, any of our agenda items. Please step to the microphone, give us your name and address, and share with us your thoughts or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way, Sandusky, Ohio. I had a question on consent item number D, or I'm sorry, letter D, which pertains to, it looks like initially 2 different submerged land leases at the Paper District location, Marina location. But as I read down a little bit further, it looks like both those are being combined into one at a cost of $1 to the city. So maybe a little bit better specific details on that when you get to that. The other item was regular item number 1, which would be the steam whistle from the former American Crayon Company property. When you get to that point, perhaps someone could explain how the city acquired that whistle. Was it donated or was it left over from the previous salvage company? So an explanation on how the city got a hold of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone Anyone else? Then we will turn to our consent agenda. And before, I'm going to get this out. I'm going to get this mixed up again, so I'm sure you can go ahead and correct me before I start. What's that? Mrs. Kresser, would you present the consent agenda items, please?
Certainly will.
I'm glad Ms. Lloyd is next to me.
Item A on the consent agenda is acceptance of 2 parcels of land through the land bank program. Item B is a purchase and sale agreement to Habitat for Humanity through the land bank program. Item C is the transfer of property to the Erie County Land Reutilization Corporation through the land bank program. Item D is a submerged land lease payment for the Paper District Marina. Item E are donations of equipment to the Moby Career Center, Catawba Island Township Fire Department, and the City of Huron Fire Department from the city's fire department, Sandusky. Item F is a renewal of a lease with Bowling Green State University Firelands College for property at Big Island Waterworks. Item G is the award of a contract for the Amtrak renovation and modernization project to Studer Obringer Incorporated. Item H is the ratification of a gas detection system equipment purchase for the wastewater treatment plant. And item I is an encroachment license agreement for property located at 172 to 186 East Market Street.
Thank you, Mrs. Kresser. Commissioners, is there anyone who wishes to have any of the consent items removed from the consent agenda? I do need to ask that item D be removed. I didn't catch that when we put together the agenda. Initially, I have a potential conflict of interest, and I don't vote on things related to the paper district agreement.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, Mr. Brady?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda and declaring that all ordinances and resolutions A, B, C, E, F, G, H, and I, ordinance and resolutions as drafted and presented to the City Commissioner under the consent agenda shall take effect in accordance with the section reflected in the ordinances or resolutions, whether it be in accordance with Section 13 or Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
It's been a motion and second. Discussion? Mr. Kresser, would you poll the commissioners on the motion, please?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinances and resolutions,
Ms.
please.
Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Those resolutions and ordinances are adopted. Would you present our first item, please, Mrs. Kresser?
Item D,
Yes.
which is now regular agenda item,
Yeah.
is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a replacement submerged lands lease with the state of Ohio, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, for property located at 611 West Shoreline Drive, authorizing the city manager and/or finance director to make payment to the Ohio Treasurer of State for the submerged lands lease, file numbers SUB 0324ER and SUB 1731ER for the period of September 1, 2011 through August 31, 2017, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this communication, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and second. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Brady.
I would ask that our engineer, Mr. Klein, give us a brief discussion of what exactly we're doing combining these two items. I certainly like the price. It appears that the price going forward is going to be $1 a year. And that sounds like a bargain, but if you can explain to us exactly what we're doing there, Mr. Klein, for both ourselves and the public.
Yes, through you, Mr. President. I actually going to have to turn this over to Law Director Harris, but I would like to kick it off and say that this is, when I got here around 4 years ago, we had about 6 or 7 of these things that were sitting out there just hanging there, and been fighting the submerged land leases for 2, 3, 5, 8 years prior to that. And this is the final one of all those that we had sitting out there. So it's nice to see these things finally being taken care of. But to answer the question from Mr. Schwanger, I'd have to turn it over to the Law Director.
Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Commissioner President. Through you, Commissioner President, to Commissioner Brady, and to answer Mr. Schwanger's question. The reason why it appears that there are two submerged land leases is that collectively, if you were to look at the submerged land lease mapping that we have for at least our city, this is the paper district, which is comprised of, I believe, actually 4 different submerged land leases that actually come and touch the paper district marina. As people may be aware, there was extensive litigation over a period of time over these submerged land leases, but there were a period of time that has been basically not accounted for, and it's that 6-year period between 2010 and 2016. The original submerged land lease that we had in place with that, with respect to these 2 submerged land leases or that area, we somehow, this is long before all of our time, had some sort of contract with the state, and it was actually designated as an income-producing piece of property. So moving forward, it's been reclassified, and that's just the contract we have with ODNR, that it's a governmental non-income producing property. So moving forward, it's going to be $1 a year, which is consistent with some of the submerged land leases that we have over here where the old Surf's Up used to be. However, during this time frame, that was just a contractual agreement that we entered into with ODNR at the time. So there is a price tag of $41,000 and some change for that parcel of land. What happens is, under the Ohio Revised Code, ODNR receives 50% of those monies, and those are put in a pot that is used for future grants that Aaron and his department has received. That $1 million ODNR grant is partly funded by the submerged land lease fees, and then 50% is reimbursed to the city as being the local administrative or local arm of the, I guess, the minister of the submerged land lease. So of the $41,031.80 that we pay for the prior 6 years for that parcel, we're going to get reimbursed half of that. And then I'm assuming we will eventually, later on, receive some of those proceeds via grants and other types of projects. But moving forward, it'll be $1 a year for the next 50 years.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Additional questions or comments, commissioners? Mrs. Cresser, would you poll the commissioners on the motion, please?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Abstain.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the resolution? Excuse me,
Ordinance.
ordinance.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Abstain.
Mr. Brady? Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. Item number 2, please, then.
Is a resolution authorizing the disposal of a non-operational steam whistle from the former American Crayon site as being unnecessary and unfit for city use, approving the donation of the whistle to the Heritage Society of Erie County, and declaring that this resolution take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this communication, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Fine.
I move for the adoption of this resolution under the suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and second. Discussion. Mr. Lasko, could you answer the question on the table of how we acquired this? I just want to provide a little bit of background. Larry Hokenberg has been reminding me, asking me, bugging me, and I imagine probably some of you, about this whistle for quite some time. So to be associated with the Erie County Historical Society, Heritage Society, excuse me, and they have their barn or building out at the fairgrounds, which is where some other materials from that factory are housed. And so, but maybe you could give a little bit more background so that we understand. But great credit goes to Larry Hokenberg for continuing to press this issue.
Yes, Mr. President. And I'd first acknowledge, actually, my first connection with it was through Commissioner Brady. He had reached out to me sometime in early July or so, and mentioned that he had been having some conversations with folks from the Heritage Society and the Old House Guild that were looking specifically of the whistle, but potentially the opportunity to look at some other items on site. Through that, we ultimately were connected to Rick Scheel, who I know is present tonight, and we sort of coordinated a site visit at the end of July with him and a few colleagues, not just to look at the steam whistle, but to sort of just roam the site and determine if there was anything else of value to them that may not be of economic value to the city. Unfortunately, the site was fairly well picked over, but ultimately the steam whistle was still there. And with that said, we thought it was of value to look at donating and disposing that property to the Heritage Society. And Rick had actually shared some interesting background on that whistle, and that evidently was a whistle that could be heard, certainly close to all around the county and sort of signaled the start of the shift, the dinner hour, and the end of shift. So it had a relevance to not just the factory itself, but sort of people planned their day in and around that whistle in Sandusky and Perkins Township for sure. Again, our goal is to donate this to the Heritage Society. The condition of the whistle is sort of unknown at the moment, so I know once they get their hands on it, they're going to assess it for the ability to minimally rehab it and, in a best case scenario, make it operational again and then put it on display at the fairgrounds for folks from the city of Sandusky and Erie County. To Mr. Schwanger's question, obviously the city is now in an ownership position at American Crayon, and this was merely an artifact that was left post-acquisition. I can't speculate as to why the prior owner left it, although it is a difficult to obtain item in that you've basically got to get up in a lift and pluck it off one of the buildings. And it does appear to be a little bit deteriorated. So those may be some of the reasons why the prior owner left it, but I'm purely speculating. But we're happy to participate with the Heritage Foundation and dispose of this to them so they can put it on display.
Thank you, Mr. Lasko. Questions or comments, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brady.
I know that many of us as commissioners heard from a variety of people with the Heritage Foundation. Certainly Mr. Hulkenberg, Dr. Keller comes to mind, Ed Stroud comes to mind also. But I have a little more intimate relationship on this issue in that from 1949 to 1954, I lived at 122 Taylor Street, which is about a 9-iron away from that whistle. And honestly, there was not a day that went by from ages 1 through 4, which is how old I was, that whistle didn't scare the heck out of me. And I think I was most thrilled when my family relocated in 1954 to almost to the border of Sandusky at 230 50th Street. So although I love the neighborhood, I sure never miss that whistle.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bonington.
I grew up a 3-wood away on Carr Street. So he threw the 9-iron. Anyway, I remember it well. And then we all got emails today. In the early part of the 20th century, Sandusky was known as the color capital of the world because the factory turned out more crayons and color chalk than anywhere else in the world. I've even taken my daughter's nieces. This comes from John Krupp from Arlington, Virginia, sent us all this email there. I thought that was kind of neat. It's got a lot of history, so I think this is great.
Additional questions or comments? Mr. Cresser, would you poll the commissioners on the motion, please?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the resolution?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That resolution is adopted. Our last regular business item, please, Mrs. Cresser.
Yes, this would be an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager and/or the finance director to expend funds for the emergency purchase of a ShoreTel phone system from TTX Incorporated of Maumee, Ohio, in the amount of $109,975.39, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this communication, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Lloyd.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under the suspension of the rules and in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Discussion. Mr. Hamilton, maybe you could give us a little bit of background in terms of how we found ourselves here with a very old phone system on the verge of collapse, and what it is that you've done to make sure that we can maintain the communications that we need to do for the city to do its work and maintain its communications with the public as well as internally.
Through you, Commission President, This is a retroactive communication to replace the phone system for the city, and this is across the city as a whole, for a total cost of $109,975. This was budgeted for this year. Just the old phone system got here faster than we did this year. So we're running behind the step for a little while right now. Current phone system is 17-year-old. We lost it on the 19th of July. It went down with hardware failures. We managed to band-aid it together to keep us through until the new phone system comes in. Doing this as an emergency isn't something we did lightly, but we felt we had no choice at the time. It usually takes 8 weeks plus to after the point of purchase to implement a new phone system. And if we waited until this one failed, we could have been down for that long. Luckily now, between getting ahead of the curve, working with a vendor, and Don's short legs running around the city consistently for 2 weeks, we're actually back up to a chance. If we do lose it, we could provide phone communications across the city. We chose the ShoreTel system for multiple reasons. I've worked with it for years. I know it's a top-class system, a full unified communication system, which will let us not only do voice, but data, instant messaging, video conferencing, the full Monty. We also got it referred to us by local municipalities. There's 3 or 4 of them around here that do them, and also the vendor that they use. So that's why all those reasons rolled together is why we chose this system. I think it's the only choice for us. It enables us to do the moves coming up as well. And basically, we will unplug this phone system and plug it in a new place, and we'll be back up the same day. So then that's it. That's what I've got for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crampton. Questions or comments, commissioners? Just a note of thanks. You've been with the city now for just about 3 years, if I remember correctly, maybe 2.5. And, one of the less glamorous parts of what the city does is to have to maintain its infrastructure. And telephones and computers are a big part of that. And you've been a really big part of making sure that, we've been able to return the city to a level of, I guess, IT competence, if you will, so that we're able to do the job that we need to do and safely do that job and securely do that job. So just a shout out to you and thanks for all that you've been able to do to get us back up to speed. Mr. Crosser, would you poll the commissioners on the motion, please?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted, and that concludes our regular items of business, and we turn the meeting over now to Mr. Whoopser for his city manager's report.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, audience and staff. I'll start with the donations. First, a $50 donation to the Canine Fund was received from Greg and Sarah Reynolds. I'd ask for a motion to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion and second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. And hearing no objection, the motion is approved with our thanks.
Thank you. A donation of $60,000 was received from the Randolph J. and Estelle M. Dorn Foundation, which is to be applied to the Sandusky Neighborhood Initiative. This is part of the larger $300,000 grant that was made and is the first of an annual installment to that. And I'd ask for a motion to accept that first installment of that larger grant.
So moved.
Second.
It's been a motion and second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. And hearing no objection, the motion is approved. And it's very nice to be able to make to vote on this for the first of 5 years in a row, because that's a very substantial donation.
Thank you. We're very excited about it. Also, a donation of $150 to go towards the Battleship of Lake Erie board game, life-sized board game, was received from Eric Stock. I'd ask for a motion to receive that donation.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and second discussion. Without objection, the motion be approved. And hearing no objection, the motion is approved with our thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moving on to new and old business, starting with the police department. Conditional offers have been given to Logan Demuth and Ronta Hill Morgan to fill full-time vacancies. Start dates will be determined in the next couple of weeks. Also, just once again, a shout out to Chief Orzak, as well as the entire police department, fire department, and recreation department, and everyone involved on what was yet another a record-breaking year for Touch a Truck. Every year, we think they can't outdo themselves, and every year they find a way to do it. So thank you again for everyone, not only who put that on, but who also partner with our organizations and the audience that comes down to make it a success every year. Moving on to the fire department, all nasal Narcan is being received free of charge indefinitely from the Erie County Health Department through a grant called Saving Lives Erie County. So we want to say thank you to the Erie County Health Department. Also, congratulations to firefighter John Seque, who was the winner of the Home Run Derby between police and fire. All proceeds benefited the Erie County Honor Flight, and it's a shame we have neither our acting or future fire chief here to give Chief Orzek a hard time about that. But I hear it was a very fun event.
It was definitely a rigged.
Quick patch.
John made comments about them having more time to practice or something along those lines. So we won't go there anymore. So.
That'd be fair and square.
Also, a thank you to the members from the Second Presbyterian Church in Indianapolis, Indiana. While here, the group performed community service, which included painting several fire hydrants that were much in need of a fresh coat of paint. Moving on to Public Works, we'd like to welcome Nick Jacobs, who's been hired at the Big Island Water Works and started today. Also in preparation for the reconstruction of Venice Heights Boulevard, the engineering division is being very conscientious about how construction is going to affect the staff and families of Venice Elementary, and are working really closely with the schools to ensure that transportation and access to the school flows smoothly throughout the duration of the project. We know that doing this during the school year is complicated, but it was what was able to be accomplished with the timing and budget of the project, and we know Aaron and his team will work really hard to get it right. Also, all sign locations have been staked by the contractor for the wayfinding and signage project. Anyone with concerns or questions about the location of signs can contact Public Works at 419-627-5829. That's 419-627-5829. And Aaron's already been very conscientious with those who've raised concerns about the location of signs. And he and I are actually taking a tour of duty tomorrow to look at some of the signs ourselves and ultimately, give final sign off so they can proceed. And I think that's going to be a great project as well. Moving on to community development, quite a few of these today, and they're comprehensive, but good stuff. First of which, though, is a request from the commission passing on a request from Miss Jacqueline Sally, who wants to reduce the amount owed to the city for her 2005 chip loan, actually her mother's 2005 chip loan. Her mother passed away, and she'd like to sell the property and utilize the proceeds received from the sale to pay off the loan. Myrtle Adams, Miss Sally's mother, received a $24,534 loan in 2005 through the owner-occupied rehabilitation program. The current amount owed to the city is $17,173.80. However, Miss Sally is requesting a payback of $11,887.52, which will be the total amount of proceeds received from the sale of the property. Therefore, Miss Sally will be receiving no proceeds from the sale of the property, and there will be a reduction of approximately 31% of the amount owed. City staff recommends approval of the reduction so that the city can receive money which will be used on future CHIP projects and ensure the continued occupancy of the property. I'd ask for a motion to accept that reduced amount.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion, second discussion. Voice vote, Ms. Kresser?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. Also, the Building Division is excited to welcome Scott Tom as the new Chief Building Official. Mr. Tom began his work with the City of Sandusky today and is anxious to provide additional capacity and leadership to the division. He came highly recommended from the Erie County General Health District, where he spent the last 11 years, most recently as the Director of Construction Programs there. We want to thank George Polis for his service. He's going to continue to remain on staff through the fall to help in the transition and has aided tremendously in growing the output and responsiveness of the division over the last few years. The historic Columbus Avenue Commercial District update, Roos Brothers Construction has submitted the final National Register District application for the commercial district expansion. The proposed expanded district is anticipated to be considered by the Ohio Historic Site Preservation Advisory Board at their regular September meeting on September 20th. The application will be considered locally by the Landmarks Commission at their next meeting on August 23rd at 4:30 p.m. in the first floor conference room. The state will also be sending out notices to all property owners within the proposed expanded district, making them aware of the September 20th meeting and providing them contact info for folks who still have remaining questions as to what it means to be located within the district. Also, the Community Development Department, in partnership with the Department of Public Works, is set to mail out this week approximately 6,000 notices to tenants of registered rental properties regarding efforts tenants can take to reduce exposure to lead in drinking water. Although lead levels in the city have never exceeded levels required by the U.S. and Ohio EPA, the city commission and staff thought it would still be valuable to let tenants know that this low risk can be reduced even further by running faucets for 30 to 120 seconds before drinking. We want to thank Commissioner Waddington for his suggestion that not everyone is a homeowner or receives or looks at the water bill, and so this is another opportunity for us to reach them and to let people know this important public service announcement. Also, the city has hired Tim Bergman as the new transit administrator. He's a resident of Erie County and most recently worked as administrator for the Ottawa County Transportation Agency. And the Department of Job and Family Service has issued an invitation to bid for transportation services. The city, through STS, will be submitting a bid to provide service. The bid is due August 17th. Staff will follow up with the communication to ratify legislation. And then finally, for public services, the Wilbert Park Play and Swing Set has been completed. And construction will begin this week on the Lions Park play set. We've already gotten rave reviews from the residents of Wilbert Park, and Director Link is going to work with Kelly and my office to make sure we set up a dedication and invite the residents out there to formally open in an exciting way that new neighborhood playground. That concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wobser. Questions or comments for Mr. Wobser? One, Mr. Wobser, that you and I talked about before, and I just want to mention this publicly, and that is that I think we can do more. I know we can do more with the conditions of our parks, and as opposed to adding more full-time people, I would like to strongly encourage you, as you put your budget together, to consider more seasonal folks. I just think that, you know, when the weeds are growing and the grass is growing, that's the time we need some folks, and there are opportunities for young people to get some experience, or anyone else who just wants a seasonal job. It's obviously not limited to young people, but those are the folks who most often apply for those positions. So I really encourage a harder look at that going forward. We could do a little bit better, and one of the challenges for the city is, as we do better in a lot of different areas, more is expected, and that's okay too. But we need to figure out how to manage those expectations, and I think having more, or not manage expectations, but to deliver to those expectations, and I think some more seasonal folks would really help.
Through the commission president to the commission, I think it's a good suggestion. We have incrementally added staff to nearly every department, and in services that has included both full-time and some part-time and seasonal staff. And we're looking at that appropriate balance. I think that we definitely want to continue to add staff and services. To your point, we have so much property to maintain, and there's a baseline level of maintenance, and then once you reach that baseline, you can take things to another level. And I think ultimately, the more hands, the better, and I think Brad would agree with that. And so we've been looking to find that right balance between full-time and seasonal. This is a good timing to get that suggestion, because fall is really when we begin the budgeting process. Even though you don't pass the budget till March, we start to have those conversations in September and October, and then toward the end of the year, that moves to finance, and then ultimately to the commission early in the year. So thank you for the suggestion. Any other suggestions that the commission has on staffing? We're working as hard as we can, and I think we have incrementally improved the level of service, but we certainly aren't where we want to be, and I think that that's a good suggestion to help us get there over time.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear that this is not a knock on Mr. Link or his folks. I mean, you can only do what you can do with the number of folks that you have. The parks today are in much better condition than they were 3 years ago, but I think we could do better.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments for the city manager? Then we will turn to new business. Anyone having, or old business, excuse me, first. Anyone having any items of old business? Probably don't keep the agenda in front of me. Any items of new business?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Waddington.
I had a conversation with you last week, and I want to throw this out to Eric and maybe possibly the staff law department. On our dog license fees, how much is generated from the city of Sandusky? And then what benefits do we receive from this? And then if they could look at possibly bringing back the animal control officer for the city in some capacity. Last week, it was on Facebook, and I received a call from the Taylor Street address. And we did some follow-up. I know Chief sent out, Dana knew, they went out, looked at it, and everything was okay there. But I think we need to research what benefit do we really get from the county, and no knock on them. I would just like to know day-to-day procedures, like kind of, we all, user services, but could we expand or have someone come back on our dog license fees? What percentage that is countywide? It's got to be pretty huge, I got to believe. Okay. And what benefit do we receive on that? And I'm hoping that at some point we could get an animal control officer. That'd be neat.
We're working real hard on it.
Okay. So if someone could just check into that and get back, and maybe Mr. Murray, you could add on the conversation that we had as far as going forward and your thoughts on it.
Well, we've talked about this for a while, as a city, in terms of,
right.
We pay the dog license fees to the county, but the county dog warden, generally speaking, does not wish to come into the city of Sandusky to deal with the animal issues. And, the question is, what's the fairness there? They still provide a shelter, and so I think we just want to take a look at what the economics here are, and whether this is being fair to the residents of Sandusky and the animal owners in Sandusky. So, I'm not saying that it isn't, but I want to take a look.
Yeah, that's all.
I agree.
A snapshot of what's happening.
Through the commission president, Commissioner Waddington, we do have a budgeted nuisance control officer position in last year's budget, but it was budgeted to be filled in the last quarter of this year. And a few of the hires, and that will be predominantly animal control. We call it nuisance control because they may be able to take on other nuisance issues as well. I believe the most recent round of hires that we announced tonight in the manager's report will provide us with those new officers so that an existing officer could bid into and start that position. So we should have somebody in that position by the end of the year. We did also last year meet with Barb Knapp, the county dog warden, and she assured us in her mind that they're not providing a different level of service to Sandusky. It's just the same level of service, but that they often supplement that level, which isn't as high as they want it to be, by the fact that we have had in the past people that do that. But we will continue that conversation. I know that she made a statement as part of that recent article and issue on Taylor Street that looked as if that wasn't the case, and so we'll follow up with her, and we certainly need to do that anyways with the animal control officer, and we'll report back, and then we'll work with Justin on potentially addressing the idea of how would we potentially use fees locally as opposed to on a countywide basis. So,
Commissioners, I would like to make a motion to change the meeting date for the last meeting of December. The way the calendar falls is our meeting would ordinarily be on a Monday, of course, and that's December 26th. Because, no, I'm sorry, that's 25th. And so it would, and because the city is closed on both the 25th and the 26th, that would bump our meeting to the 27th. I think that is not a great time to have a meeting. I think it's hard for the public to follow. A lot of people are gone for the holidays, visiting family and whatnot. And so I would like to make a motion. I am going to make a motion. We've already checked with Ms. Soloway, indicates this is fine for budget purposes. So my motion is to move that meeting to December 22nd at 3 p.m., Friday, December 22nd at 3 p.m.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Second, discussion. Voice vote again, Mrs. Cresser? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That date is changed. Yeah, thank you. And also, I need to set a public hearing for Monday, September 25th at 5 p.m. regarding the rezoning of 3 parcels, 113 and 117 Neal Street and 118 Division Street, and so that hearing is set. Other items of new business.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brady.
I need to make I would like to make a motion for an executive session regarding pending litigation.
Second.
Been a motion and second. Discussion? Ms. Cresser, would you poll the commissioners regarding the motion?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That executive session is set. Is there a second one, Mr. Brady?
There is, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make an additional motion for a second executive session regarding eminent litigation.
Second.
It's been a motion and second. Discussion? Ms. Cresser, would you poll the commissioners on the motion, please?
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd? Yes. Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That executive session is set. Any other items of new business? Mr. Lockhart.
I'd like to let the public know that this past weekend, we had a successful volunteer day, actually 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. In fact, some of the volunteers are here. Dwayne, Sarah, and Tim Schwanger came out and helped us improve in the Hancock area. About 7 or 8 properties, I'll have to tell you about that. We did some landscaping, some painting, quite a few things out there to move the Hancock corridor along. And so I'd like the public to know that on August 25th at 4 p.m., we'll have another meeting there where we can talk about the improvements and plans that we have coming up in the Hancock corridor at the greenhouse. So it's a 2-for-1 special. You get to see the greenhouse and tour that. And also, we can discuss those improvements in sort of a little mixer. There'll be some food and refreshments, rather. And Mr. Gallagher at the greenhouse has stated that if you do bring your kids, he wants to do some science experiments for them too. So everyone's invited. August 25th, that's a Friday, 4 p.m. at the city greenhouse, which is on Monroe Street. And so that should be good coming up. And secondly, I'd like to make a motion based upon the Ohio legislation, January 1st of 2017. They've altered the laws for golf carts and other vehicles similar to that. And so I think Huron has some similar legislation. So I'd like to make a motion to direct the manager to update our golf cart legislation to kind of match some of the development things that we've got going on in the city and mobility. Also would give a chance for the chief of police to review any legislation and the law department too to review that.
Okay, there's a motion, and I understand. So there's,
We already have the golf legislation.
we have a golf cart?
Yeah, legislation stuff, yeah.
Okay, but technically we need a second, so we can discuss this. So I'm going to second the motion so that we can discuss it. And the issue has to deal with gators and similar devices. And Mr. Harris, I don't know where we are on this. You and I had a conversation earlier about this, and actually we've had some emails going back and forth for some period of time. And you would be the one to actually prepare a draft of legislation. I understand Huron has something similar, but maybe you could give us a little bit of background of where we are at and where we might get as a result of this motion if it's approved by the commission.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner President. To answer your question, there have been some citizens who want to volunteer their time to help improve the Hancock corridor and other locations throughout the city and have intentions of purchasing what's called a mule and or something similar to a gator. Right now, they're illegal. I have concerns. I've talked briefly with the police department. They have concerns. I've also reached out to Cedar Point and their general counsel, as well as police department. They have some concerns with those types of vehicles, even golf carts being on the causeway and whatnot. But Huron has implemented legislation that has been inclusive of other vehicles besides golf carts. There are some issues that we're trying to iron out and work through. We think we may be able to present some legislation to the commission that can accommodate some of these wishes with maybe some restrictions on time frames of when they can operate those vehicles and maybe potentially certain locations. But Commissioner Lockhart is correct that they did amend the state legislation in early January to give local preference to some of these vehicles to be more inclusive than just golf carts.
So thank you, Mr. Harris. And I want to make clear, this is just a motion to ask for some legislation to be prepared for us to consider, and it's not saying that we will pass the legislation. We've got to see it, see what it says, then find out what the reaction is to it.
Correct.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Other items of new business? We'll turn to audience participation. Anyone wishing to address the commission on any city-related topics, please step to the microphone, give us your name and address, and share your thoughts with us, please.
Sharon Johnson, 1139 Fifth Street. I have a couple comments here. The Leaky Boot has reneged on their $100,000 loan to us. We even gave them another year to make good on the loan, and they didn't. Now, we discussed this in a coffee meeting, and one commissioner said, well, we have a lien against them. Big deal. We're second in line. We're always second in line. That's not very good. I would like to know if the commissioners could do something different than to be in second in line for a lien, because the bank's going to get all of it. We're not going to get anything. We've kissed it goodbye. So I would like to know if the city can come up with something to protect the taxpayer. That's a lot of money, $100,000 down the tubes. I don't know if we can set something up. When I was on the revolving loan fund, we did something, the last loan that we did before they deleted us, we did an increment loaning thing for rehab, and because it was highly risky. And we told the property owner that we would give him so much money, like maybe a third when he gets started, and then another third when he's halfway there, and then the final third. So we knew we had some leverage. We need to have some leverage in our grants and our loans. We cannot just be giving money away and something's not happening, or they they leave without paying any money to us. And I'd like to know if something could seriously take a look at this and restructure this a little bit different instead of being second in line for a lien. Is there something we can do?
Did you say you had several items, Mrs. Johnson?
That's the one. And I'm just asking, before I go to my next one, if you could seriously look at this and maybe restructure it differently.
Okay, we certainly hear your concern. The city's in discussions with the property owner, and I understand we've issued a notice of default. And I think the city's pretty optimistic we're going to get repaid. But, it's kind of a semi-litigation matter, and it's not really liberty to discuss it a lot more than that, I don't think.
Okay. The second one is the trust of lands. I made the last meeting of their meeting there where they went over the results of that. Now, they've been at this for a year and a half. They had a 6-month extension. They were supposed to get it done in a year. They were paid $90,000 in a grant for this. And the city just, I guess the city paid $9,000 and something towards this. The foundation paid $42,500 a foundation, and the other $42,500 came from the state. I don't know what their scope of work was supposed to be, but I was shocked when I sat there and listened to that. That bull that they were giving us. They said this is the beginning of the process. They only gave us a couple of flimsy little designs of green space. And when they asked for an extension, I saw some of their progress reports. They were supposed to have progress reports bi-monthly. In the one report, when they asked for the extension, they only had a year that they've been at this, and it said, what percentage are you through on this process? They said 10%. 10%. In a year's time, they did 10% work on this. It looked like it was just mainly for research. They did research. They had 8 meetings and 2 drawings. I don't think we got our money's worth. I know we only had $9,000 stake at this, but I don't think we got our money's worth. $90,000, that was too much money for 8 meetings and 2 lousy drawings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. That meeting that was referenced was a steering committee, so they were checking in with the members of the steering committee. It was a public meeting, and obviously some other folks attended, just trying to get some feedback and direction in terms of where that project's going, if we ultimately move in that direction. Anyone else wishing to address the City Commission?
Hello. I'm going to bring up a few things from last month. Catherine Carter, 5309 Columbus Avenue. On the city website, the city comprehensive plan from 2016 shows there already was a plan to remove parking in Sandusky. Look closely at the streets. Parking on the first and second blocks of Jackson Street, half the parking on Shoreline Drive, diagonal parking on Water Street, gone. Parking lot behind Daly's, gone because it's not used enough. From Shade Mylander to Washington Park, no parking on Columbus Avenue. Yes, I understand these are comprehensive plans and nothing set in stone, but this only proves that customers from the ferries will be walking more than a couple of blocks to get to their vehicles. And remember, it's uphill from the waterfront. Let's back the ferry up a little. For years, in the newspaper, I read, what are you going to do with Surf's Up? Clean it up, use it, tear it down? You finally got the money and tore it down, and it's beautiful down there now. What I didn't read for years in the newspaper was, why isn't there a park on the pier so I can roll in the grass with my kids? I never read that kind of stuff. First State Theater meeting. If we were asked right then for the ideas for the pier, you might have gotten more benches, trash cans, flowers, repaved, maybe more food trucks, and wheelchair access. But you didn't want that. We were directed to the left side of the room where there were boards with pictures of things from other cities. I call them the shiny things. Wouldn't you like to have this? Wouldn't this be nice? This would be fun. You're going to love this. Now you have ideas in your head you previously probably wouldn't have thought of. Then you move to the Post-it note board. Now they ask you for your ideas. Now it's a couple months later and people are arguing about things they want and what they want to do on the pier they never even considered before and never even considered in the other parks. Why don't we spread these ideas through Shoreline Park, Sandusky Bay Pavilion, Battery Park, and Washington Park? And there is a great hill to roll down at the marina. With no one taking advantage of, and like you said, taking care of the parks we already have, it has given the city the reason to tear up Battery Park and build condos. Boomtown meeting. That room was packed, people sitting on the stairs. Mr. Pesta opened with, tell us what you want, this is your time to be selfish. So we told him what we wanted, we told him what we didn't want, and most importantly, why. As I recall, Mr. Pesta told us at that meeting that he had had a meeting with Mr. Lamb earlier that day, and Mr. Lamb said it would be okay with him to park his customers somewhere else. My first thought was, did anyone ask his customers that? Thursday state meeting. Mr. Webster goes through a long description about how there's too much parking in Sandusky. Looking at the 2016 plan, that's already in the works to correct this huge problem. There were no plans displayed on the easels in the room, so we weren't distracted. Now the sales pitch, then the presentation. Wow, talk about firing people up. Please remember, these are architects, but they are also salespeople. They are trained to convince us that we really need this. We won't be happy without it. When someone shakes your hand, looks you in the eye, and says, we want your ideas, that's personal. But the young lady that was asking more questions about the people in the room than the designs on the boards, she made it personal. Mr. Pesta looked at a room full of people and tells them something specific to direct their ideas, and you find out a month later that what he stated was not completely true. But when an established Sandusky business owner, who is a staple on the pier and to the city, tells you the plans that you are creating for grass may crush his business, that affects his business, his family, and his employees' families, that's very personal. Spending millions of dollars for an unnecessary park when a different direction of ideas could buff up the pier and add some portable winter plans might be something else to consider. No one has said we don't want improvements. I think I'm going to go back to the 5 Rs. That's what I'm going to do now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Anyone else wishing to address the commission?
My name is Bill Glass. I live in Sandusky, Ohio, 1119 Milan Road. This is the first time I've been in this room. I look around and I see all these important people. And I want to take my hat off to you people in that front row. You do a great job. And I'm not saying that just to give me what I'm going to ask you for, because I'm against term limits altogether. And they shouldn't have any, because I'm sure that when a new person comes on the commission, that it probably takes a couple of years to even find out what's going on. And then you have to leave. And I just take my hats off to you people. That I will now go to 3 items that I want to discuss. I live in an alley in Sandusky. That alley was paved, blacktopped, 10 to 12 years ago. They did a nice, beautiful job. And it was done by the city workers. It wasn't done by some other outside contractor. You people have ignored your alleys. They are deplorable. I want you to take a look someday at my alley. And I live on it. There aren't many houses on an alley, but I live there. I live parallel to Milan Road and Wayne Street. I live perpendicular from Scott Street to Finch Street. I want you to drive down Scott Street, turn into the alley, and see how nice it is. And this was done 10 or 12 years ago. We don't have a salt problem, it doesn't deteriorate the road, and it lasts a hell of a lot longer. Now, as you go down that road south, you're gonna cross Finch Street. And I wanna hear your comments when you look at the rest of that alley. It's a mess. And I don't know why you people don't, you used to fill the chuck holes, the potholes. You don't even do that anymore. But I would like something from you people on what can we do. Now, again, this was city workers that done this. It wasn't an outside contractor or anything else. I went out and talked to those individuals that work for the city. And they said, Mr. Glass, we have some slow times. And I'm sure they do. But he admitted that to me. And what we could repair your alleys in these periods. And I just would like you to take a look at it to see what could be done. They're really a mess. That's all I've got to say about that. The other thing is Sandusky has to get back to a manufacturing base. Mr. Whoopser was at our place, the senior men's meeting, and I have to agree with him. The improvements, the good things that are being done in Sandusky. What all we've done for the last 20 years is tear down businesses. There is no manufacturing base in Sandusky anymore. And I said that to Mr. Whoopser. And Mr. Whoopser says, when we finally get the American Crane building tore down, we're going to aggressively try to get new business. And I thought to myself, that's 3 or 4 years away, right? You're not going to clean that place up in a couple of years.
We've given a contract.
Pardon?
We approved at the last meeting, I think, a contract to take it down. So I think it will be down by
Did 9 months
Ni-
from
ni-
July.
9 months from July.
I bet on it.
Fair enough.
Well, anyhow, when you start tearing all these down, what keeps the young people in Sandusky anymore? They don't. And I think a good survey would be, how many of our young people that go to college And even just graduate from high school, how many stay around here? What is there for them other than minimum wage? We've got to get back to we've got to get jobs back here that pay a little bit of money other than minimum wage. Now, the main reason I'm here tonight is to talk about Jackson Street Pier. I lived in Sandusky most of my life. Jackson Street Pier is very unique, to say the least. I went to the meeting at the State Theater. I think those people don't know what Sandusky's like. I think they had us there to tell us, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? Sometimes I lose my train of thought. They said they're going to take a survey. They found out we have ample parking. And how did they take this survey? They took it from October to June. And they said they're going to do it for a year. But my gosh, you could take a tank from November to May and drive it down Shoreline Park and not hit a car. I mean, they think we're stupid. I mean, it doesn't, we knew we had enough parking, but you don't want to take it away from us. That is a seasonal business those two boats have. They got big investments. They depend on 4 to 5 months out of a year to make it. We don't want to take anything away from them, nothing. They've got to survive those 4 or 5 months. And I say, if this goes through, Mr. Mary, I think that the people should have a vote in it. If it comes down to that, you want to make it right, let the people vote on it. And if they vote for it, fine. If they vote against it, that's the people's will. And that's what you're here for, to help the people. And those voters, they do so much. They bring the people into the town. And that's what you want. I think there should be one more boat down there. And that's a boat daily going to Cedar Point. Daily going to Cedar Point every hour. And that's where maybe we should invest some money. Again, it's a seasonal thing. It's hard to make money. But please, don't do this to Jackson Street Pier. Leave it alone. I tell you what to do with it. You should blacktop it, stripe it, put some decent facilities down there for restrooms, and let those boat people go. Have you ever looked at it down there when the Peely Islander comes in? It's pretty crowded. It's pretty messy. You got cars coming off the boat, you got cars going on the boat. Please, let Jackson Street Pier alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass.
Dwayne Sear, 5318 Tiffany Ave, Castelia. I got something to say. I talked to Nikki Lloyd this weekend, trying to, get some ideas from everybody. One thing she brought up a point about is we want to talk about the parking on Shoreline. One thing I don't think the designers thought of, you got the air conditioning, you got the trash cans. That's going to take up some of your sidewalk. So I think we need to, as the commissioners and planners, need to reevaluate some of the plans, because I don't think we're taking into consideration some of the businesses that have some of the things that are in the way, that are going to take up some of the spots. We need to evaluate, maybe do a 3D dimensional plan of the pier or some of the plans you plan on doing to show people what you want to do, what it's going to look like, because you can show a design on paper, that's fine. But that doesn't show you everything, the aspect of what it's going to look like. Because you hate to spend the money on some of these projects and then find out later on that didn't work. But if you look at a 3D image, you know whether something's going to work there or not. Because, I mean, I hate to see the city spend a lot of money on projects that they later on find out don't work. And I know a 3D image probably would cost a lot of money for someone to probably do, but if somebody could do one, it'd be nice to see some of the plans done like that so that it gives the public a view of what it's going to look like. And we got so many parks right now that are not being used, and we're fixing them up. We need to start utilizing them for our events. Maybe have a festival down Shoreline Park, you know, all the way down to the Paper District. You do stuff like that and change the pier up is good. We need a change. But do we need a drastic change to where it's going to affect the people? We need to come to a common ground that's going to work, because right now, all we're doing is dividing the city right now. We need to come to something that is going to work to keep the green space that's there, fix it up, because you got a sign you can't even read at night. We need to come up with something that's going to look better with a 3D image to show the people first before you decide to do anything, because you're just, that plan you got now, it doesn't show much.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, normally your comments are limited to 5 minutes, and since it was your first time here, I really let you go along. Please. You can do it from right there, yeah, okay.
One of the things that they said is in that park's layout is a skating rink, an ice skating rink. An ice skating rink has not been in Sandusky for at least 15 years. They tried it last year down by the OPAC Park. And it may be used as 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. And why didn't they use it? It's just too warm anymore. So you're gonna put something down there that's probably never gonna be used.
Thank you, Ms. Glass. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tim Schwanger, 362 Sheffield Way. Through you, I'd like to ask a couple of questions if I could on the city manager's report. But first of all, just a little bit of jocularity here. I did not pay these people to get up here and speak about the Jackson Street Pier. And number two, it's good to see Mr. Waddington in a suit coat for a change. Okay. The question I had on the city manager's report, and it looks like it's a new item under planned, design, build projects, is the Meg Street Pier concrete repairs. Perhaps we can, somebody could add to that also the east wall, which is the wall that goes out between the marina at Battery Park and the sailing club as you turn to the northwest. I spent a lot of time out there walking, and I've noticed over the last 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years, it's starting to slip away from underneath, and with the high water now, it's even gotten worse. So we're gonna actually lose full pieces of slab if we don't do something with that soon. There's many different ways to fix that, but I'm not a professional on that. I'll let the professionals figure that out. Is there any, through the law department, is there any responsibility from Sandusky Bay Development in the fixing or repairs of the pier through their lease? And the reason why I ask that is because I noticed that a lot of the blacktop areas that are within that Sandusky Bay Development lease area, those blacktop areas need a lot of attention also. And I don't know if there's some kind of a battle going between the city and Sandusky Bay Development on getting those repaired. But while they're arguing, if that's happening, it's only getting worse. So I don't know if anybody, somebody can email me the answers to those questions or a follow-up. That's fine. If nobody wants to comment tonight, that's fine.
I honestly don't recall the answer to the question of where in that contract the responsibility is assigned for maintaining those different places. And I would have to think that part of that is going to be addressed as part of the, whatever we come up with as a plan for the East Bay and those improvements there. But I think Mr. Harris can probably follow up with you to tell you what the document says.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just
That'd
don't
be great.
recall. I don't know that you would either, Mr. Harris.
Not off the
Okay.
top of my head.
You know, and again, under this plan, design, build projects, it looks like it's something that was just added for this meeting. So I don't know, there's no dates on it or anything, so I don't know if that's something, you know, next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you know, it doesn't really say. But I thought I'd ask that question. Also, on the status of grant and loan applications, it says MPO Cleveland Road preliminary planning. Now, I take that to maybe mean widening of Cleveland Road for Sports Force, since we've discussed that here about some of the parking problems out there and traffic.
There have been conversations with the MPO about adding turn lanes in particular.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that, I mean, there's also discussion right now about requests for proposals to plan out the entire space from the city, really from Causeway Drive all the way to Rye Beach Road, and that becomes kind of a coordination.
Mylan, all the way to.
Oh, Mylan all the way to Rye Beach Road. And that contract has not been let out yet. I mean, that requires a little bit of multi-jurisdictional coordination so that everyone's contributing whatever the rest of them feel is the fair share of that.
Okay. And which leads me to my last question is, I've been trying to find out how much of that property at Sports Force is actually within the city limits. And I'm having a hard time getting that information. I've asked for it, and I'm not blaming anybody here. Maybe the information's not available. I don't know. Maybe I have to go to the county to find that out. But I did notice where Cedar Point has created another parking lot to the northwest of Sports Force, but it's a stone parking lot. And if that's within the city limits, I believe they have to concrete that or blacktop that. Does that make sense?
I don't know. It makes some, it might very well be right, and I guess I haven't seen, is that parking lot visible from the road?
Yes.
Okay. And I've seen a map that shows where, you know, because Sports Force is partially in Sandusky, partially in Huron Township, and partially in Perkins Township. So it sits all three of those jurisdictions. I've seen a map in the last year and a half, but I don't immediately.
And Ms. Byington has invited me down to take a look at everything she has, which I can do that. But I just thought there would be, with all that activity out there, there would be a solid map showing that, because I was told that just a small portion of one of the runways is actually within, the old runways is actually within the city limits. The rest of it, the majority of it, is in those two other townships that you mentioned. So I guess, I'll take a look at what she has. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be the best way to answer it.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
And one last thing. The wayfinding signage, is that what we're seeing, the small stakes in the ground along major routes that have a piece of paper on them that are like folded shut that you really can't see what they are? And if that's what those are those items online also to take a look at, like what's going to go on the sign and?
Mr. Whoopser did indicate in his manager's report that that's exactly what those are.
Okay.
Whether there's a link to those on the website offhand, I don't know. I don't think there is.
So what I would have to do then is stop at locate the sign, find it, and then open it up, and I would be able to see what's going to be on it, what it's going to say, and. Okay.
Oh, I think there's a contract or document someplace that indicates all of those details, but I don't think it's online. I think it's just a big set of drawings.
Okay. Again, that would be
Mr. Klein.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else present wishing to address the commission? And we will take a short recess, and we have 2 executive sessions after that, so don't leave.